Okay, so we're live. Welcome back to the Magic Minds podcast. I'm Matt Burke. Okay, well, our last show was Richard Kelly. Absolutely brilliant. I love that podcast. I love the interview. Look, we're all film, all video, all sound. It's going absolutely Gucci. I'm delighted. I'm absolutely delighted. It was a full video for the last one. It's going to be a full one for this one. I just feel like a dog with two Mickeys. I'm absolutely delighted. So the interview was with Rich Kelly. As I said, we'd done it before and we had to do it again, but it was like sitting down for the first time. I normally don't like doing them like that because it loses the quality, it loses the authenticity. You can feel it, you can see it. I can feel it. Like we've had this conversation before, and I don't ask the questions I probably did in the first one, but this one I did. In the 53 shows, I've only ever had to do that 3 times. So I was absolutely delighted to do it again. It was brilliant. He's going to come back on the show again. I'd love to get him back on to go more deep, as I said, get more specific about the metabolic health diseases, the stuff that I'm really interested in myself, whether it be implementation in my life or just reading up on them. It's really something that I'm passionate about. Again, my knowledge is all just from reading books, listening to articles, where his is applied science, applied research. So it's cool to have somebody of that profession come on the show. It's a great resource, and I hope that you guys are enjoying that part of it as well, having these fantastic professionals on the show. So that it's cool. It kind of segues into today's episode is with Dr. Karl Neff. Karl is a lead on the National Gender Service. I'm delighted he came up through a friend in the job. His husband introduced me, and I was just delighted to get him on the show, because it's something that I'm interested in, is the gender movement, transgender, cisgender, all these terms. And I'd like to say, though, from the get-go, if there's anything I say in the podcast or we say or something is offensive, please get in touch. I don't mean to do it. My spiritual intention is always to just promote education, create a voice, create a conversation, educate people, make it acceptable to have these conversations anywhere, whether it be in work or home. And that's my purpose of this show, and purpose of bringing the likes of Dr. Karl Neff on, is to make these conversations everyday conversations that are not taboo anymore. So if I get it wrong or say something wrong, I absolutely apologise. I mean no harm, and get in touch. If I can change the show or change what I say, if I have to take it out, I fucking will. I've no bosses. There's no one telling me what to do. I want this to be educational and enjoyment for everyone that listens to it. I know people will have their opinions on things and won't be happy about everything, but my intention is not to hurt or offend anyone. And that said in the podcast, I hope that you can get in touch and let us know, because I want to be educated. I don't mind making mistakes, and I don't mind getting it wrong. So yeah, hopefully it's of benefit to you, and it's not too hurtful. And I don't think it is. I really don't. But I just wanted to say that. So yeah, getting Karl on was absolutely fantastic. As I say, I found out about him through his husband Donica, and I started reading up on him. Jesus Christ, the CV is unreal. I read loads on him on LinkedIn. I was just fascinated. The reason was to get him on was to talk about the gender service, or the transgender service, or the Irish gender service. But then I realised he's a huge background in obesity, diabetes, metabolic health, all these kind of stuff. And I was just blown away. It was like going into Aladdin's cave. I wanted to ask him so many different questions. I had so many avenues I'd love to go down. As I love the whole obesity topic. So I could ask him a little bit about that, and a little bit about bits and pieces around metabolic health and all that. But our main purpose was the gender service, and that process, and the service that's being provided for people that want to look into they're changing their gender or whatever, or feels that they're not happy in their own body that they've been assigned or whatever. So it was absolutely brilliant to get him on. As I say, his CV could fill the table, but he is very similar. What I found after sitting down and having the interview with him, he's very similar to the likes of Maeve Noel and Maria Frampton, consultants that I deal with in the hospital. You can park their qualifications and academic qualifications to the side, and what shines the most through this interview is their genuine care for people, empathetical approach, person-centered, looking at everything from a helicopter view, not just the medical model, the person, their lifestyle, everything, and that came through, and it was absolutely fantastic. I loved it, and it was really genuine and authentic, and I was really excited about the service that they're providing. And if he's the lead on it, and my child or brother, sister, family member were going into it, I'd be really uh, I'd be really at ease if this is the kind of person that's leading out on it. And it was just brilliant, and it was delivered in a lovely, empathetic, understanding, really educated. It was just lovely. It was great, and it seems like a brilliant service. And the only flaws then would be obviously just like most things and most services, even in my own hospital, it's just manpower, time, power, people, money, finance, and all that. But the root of it is really good, and it was really exciting. And so the stuff we covered was the process, the assessment process, the mental health, the stigma attached to it, whether that's the stigma attached to everything in obesity, mental health, disabilities, IVF, and we kind of cover all that, uh, what else, the hormones that's involved. That's something that I'm really interested in, the hormones they take, the process. Yeah, it was really good, and hopefully that you enjoy that, or if you have a family member or somebody in your job, that will help educate you. And there was one thing I did want to show, and this was by two guys in Cabinteely Community School, and we talk a little bit about it. It's a study on the mental health in LGBTQ people. It's quite prevalent that mental health is impacted, because of family members or because of work colleagues or friends judging. And Connor and Ollie done this study, and a girl on the job, Claire, she brought me attention to it when I was telling her that I was going to interview Karl, and we talked about it, and he was impressed as well. And it's the stuff that they're seeing within the clinic. So if this is the kind of stuff that's being led in schools by young guys, 16, 17 and 18, this is brilliant. These are the future of changing people's perceptions, and it's deadly. So well done to you. I just wanted to give a big shout out to you for that. That's deadly. Well done, Connor and Ollie. I'm really delighted and proud of you. Absolutely fantastic. Look, so have a listen to the interview, and let us know what you think. Give us a review on iTunes. We're on YouTube. We're on all the podcast mediums right across the board. Check us out. Please share with family and friends. If there's anything that you liked or disliked about the episode, get in touch. It's not all about just positive feedback. I want to hear all sorts, so get in touch with us. As always, I'll thank Noel Riley from Rooney Graphics and Jamie, working brilliantly on our graphic design stuff for the release of the podcast. We'll be lost without you guys. As always, mind your little selves. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to you and be kind to the rest of the world. So enjoy the interview, and I'll catch you all later. Bye-bye. I'm absolutely delighted to get you on the show. This is a subject that I'm really, really interested in at the moment. The whole gender world is really changing. I was just watching the documentary last night by Luca Keaton. It's called The Gender Code. Have you heard about it?
Yeah.
What do you think? What's your thoughts?
I think you're right in saying that things have changed a lot, and I think it's difficult for a lot of people in society to catch up with that. And even the people that have caught up, they might have caught up to, I always think of gender as a rainbow, and they might have caught up to one or two or three of the colours, but it's a really multicoloured rainbow, and there's lots of different genders now and different gender identities that we need to recognise, that I think most people find that difficult because they haven't even caught up to the first one or two new gender identities that they may never have heard of. And these aren't new in the sense that they've only happened in the last 10 or 20 years. People like this have always been here, they've just never been recognized. So yeah, I think it's interesting that we've started to talk about it so much, and we're starting to catch up so much, but I think it's challenging in some other ways because other people just get head spin. They just see so much changing so quickly, they just don't really understand it.
Yeah. Well, I've asked Karl to come on the show today because Karl is a consultant endocrinologist. He's also the lead on the National Gender Service in the Ireland East Hotel, or the East Hospital Group.
Yes,
am I right?
That's exactly it, Ireland East Hospital Group.
Yeah.
Based in Lockmanstown and Cullinkills Hospital.
Brilliant. So we're going to take a look into that. But before we get into that, give us a little insight to your life leading up to endocrinology. What brought you to that?
So I started my medical degree with no real idea of what I was going to be doing as a doctor. except that I just wanted to study medicine, study the science of medicine, get into the practice of medicine, and then see where it took me. And it took me to endocrinology after my first year postgraduate, first year out of college, because I worked with a great endocrinologist from Galway, Maeve Durkin, who inspired me to get into endocrinology as a specialty. And then I did some basic specialist training. So in medicine, you have to do a year as soon as you graduate, and that gets you registered as a kind of full medical practitioner. And then you have to do at least 2 years of basic specialist training, and then you specialize. So I did my 2 years in Cork, and then started specializing in endocrinology in Dublin. And really, there were two things that drew me to endocrinology. One is that it's a very physiological specialty. So you have to be really into physiology, really want to understand physiology, apply physiology. And it's a problem-solving specialty for that reason. So you're really trying to work out when physiology goes wrong or is not working as it should, why is it not working? And I love that kind of problem-solving scientific aspects to it. But the second big reason is that it's a real team sport. So endocrinology is really about, no matter what branch, because in endocrinology we treat diabetes, we treat thyroid problems with testosterone, estrogen, gender, anything like that that's hormonally related. We deal with that, but in every group, in diabetes or thyroid or gender, you have a whole team of people that you need to work with. And I like working with people, so it kind of drew me into it for that reason.
Brilliant. Wow, it's such a fascinating subject, endocrinology. I always think it's a huge puzzle, a piece in the puzzle when you look at the likes of obesity or the transgender or mental health. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's very. I mean, endocrinology. The irony is, endocrinology is one of the things that most or many people will need at some point in their lives, either because they have diabetes or a thyroid problem. But if you tell people you're an endocrinologist, they're like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
I've never heard of that. I have no idea what it is. But you're right; it covers a huge range of things, and that's again, if anybody wanted to get into endocrinology as a specialist field in medicine, you have lots of options. So you can be a pure diabetologist and just treat diabetes for the rest of your life. You can work in obesity clinics, which is something I also do, and just focus on that. You can work just in pituitary or adrenal endocrinology. So it's a very big field with lots of very interesting, challenging conditions in it, and lots of interesting people that need your help with different things. The mental health aspect is very important in all. I think in many parts of medicine we underestimate how important mental health involvement is. So people that have heart failure, or people that have COPD, common respiratory diseases, do get depressed and do get worked or burnt out or run down mentally by their physical illness. And we don't often recognize that. But in endocrinology, we're probably, of all the specialist medical fields, we're probably a little bit further ahead, because we recognize how diabetes will affect people's mental health very badly, how people with gender identity that's not cisgender, being non-cisgender, causes a lot of mental health stress. Obesity causes massive mental health problems because of obesity stigma and everything that comes with that. So I think because of the nature of the conditions that we treat, and the fact that as part of our practice we are generally quite holistic, or at least we should aim to be very holistic in our approach, that we're probably a little bit further ahead than many specialities in medicine, but we're still not where we should be. And my practice, and I think many people's practice now, is moving into a space where we don't just consider the medical part. We don't just sit there and say, I'm the medical doctor, here's the medical issue, and here's the medical treatment. I think about the medical part first and foremost, because that's what I'm best trained and placed to do. But I think about the social issues and the mental health issues and the economic issues associated with the disorder. Because for the person sitting on the other side of the table or in the bed in front of you, these are all important things too. And of course they want to know the medical bit, but they also want to know, well, how is this going to affect my job? Like if I start insulin with diabetes and I'm a taxi driver, what happens then? This kind of thing. So you do have to really think about all of those parts of a person.
And even the causation of it. It's not generally like, there might be a disturbance in their hormonal profile, but then as we just talked about earlier about like low testosterone levels, it might be contributed to your poor lifestyle, your drinking habits, your mental health, all these other things. That it's not just low T on its own, there's all these other influential factors.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think like testosterone we were talking about earlier is a classic example where we have this increasing number of young cisgendered men who present with low testosterone and all the things that come with that, like low libido and all of the other symptoms. And we do every test you can think of, we can't find out why, but actually it comes back to the fact that they're working 12 or 15 hours a day, they're not sleeping very well, there's other things going on, there's stresses in their life which affects their normal physiology. So you can give them back testosterone, great, but if you don't say, well, why is this happening? Maybe you need to cut back on your work hours, maybe you need to get better sleep, practice or hygiene. If you don't address that, you'll never fix the problem. Or in diabetes, we see it in diabetes all the time that people's diabetes goes off the tracks because they've had to change work or something has changed in their life, not because their diabetes has changed. So that's why it's important as an endocrinologist to be very holistic and really look at all the
like with the type 2 diabetes, people just go on about the insulin, it's the carbohydrates, it's this, it's that. It's the lifestyle, the stress factors, the family, the environment, and then the genetic part of it's not just one. It's about getting all your ducks in a row, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, yeah. And diabetes is the perfect example. And I think that's why endocrinologists are a bit further ahead in this. Because with diabetes, say for type 2 diabetes, we say, okay, diet, exercise, medicine. But then if somebody can't really afford the kind of diet that you'd like them to afford, it's easier to, if they're struggling to pay the bills, they're not going to go out and buy loads of fruit and veg and loads of meat and fish. They're going to buy the food that they can afford, which is usually high carbohydrate content food. And if you don't think about that part and try and make things feasible for the individual, you're never going to fix the problem. So that's, I think, why in endocrinology we're a little bit further ahead in holistic practice. And again, nowhere near where we should be, but a little bit further ahead because we have to, especially in diabetes, which is the most common condition that we would treat.
Yeah, it's huge at the moment in Ireland, isn't it?
Yeah.
And again, just to kind of go over what you just said, there's so many influential factors, and it's just struggle when people just think, I'll go out and get them to exercise. Exercise is the cure for all. I'm going, it's not. It's probably just another stick to beat them with. I think there's so many more influential factors, diet, the carbohydrate. Not that we're blaming carbohydrates, but they are generally the cheaper foods, aren't they? Really?
Yeah. It's much easier if you want to go out to a supermarket and do a trolley shop for a few days of shopping and try and do meals that have low amounts of carbohydrate, but you still want to fill your kids' bellies or whoever.
Yeah, because we eat aesthetically.
Yeah, we do, you see, and it's very tough to do that on a budget unless you include a lot of carbs. So otherwise you've got people leaving the table not feeling full and then craving these kind of high carbohydrate foods. So the veg and fruit and lots of protein, great. Protein's expensive, fruit and veg is expensive compared to potatoes or rice or pasta. So
yeah, it's hard to get a high protein diet, on the cheap.
It really is, extremely difficult. I mean, eggs can be cheap and they're a great source of protein, but how many eggs can you eat in a week without pushing your cholesterol through the roof or whatever?
And then as well, like how many eggs
can
you? Yeah, fucking, I love eggs, but how many eggs can you eat? How many times can you have scrambled egg or Spanish omelette?
Yeah, it gets repetitive. So you have to, and that's why you have to think about all those bits and really, again, it's person-centered. You think about the person sitting in front of you and what they need to get them to where they should be with whatever condition they're dealing with.
Yeah, it's a multi-pronged attack, isn't it, really? Like, I'm fascinated by metabolic health. It's huge, isn't it? Like, you could fill a stadium with information on it, and we could talk about that all day. Let's talk about the National Gender Service that you're involved with. Give us a little insight to that.
Yeah, so I've just recently been appointed to this post in the R&D's hospital group. So the National Gender Service is based in Clonakills Hospital in Loughlinstown, and there's been massive investment there recently. So Professor Donald O'Shea has been the kind of gender endocrinologist for years, since he pretty much started there nearly 20 years ago. And Loughlinstown was the kind of de facto gender centre in the sense that that's where people went if they needed hormonal transition, if they were trans. And over the years, it kind of attracted other elements of the MDT that you would need in a gender centre. But really, it's only recently that there's been huge investment by the HSE in the service. And we now have a fully fledged team that includes endocrinologists, so there are 3 of us working in the gender service. We've got psychiatry, psychology, social work, speech and language therapists, specialist nurses. So we have the whole team now,
that's
which
fascinating.
we didn't have even this time last year. So, as I said, the team was developing. We did have mental health elements, and we did have some endocrinology, obviously based around endocrinology, But it's really now that we've got the speech and language and social work an additional resource to really take it to where it needs to be.
Brilliant. Do you know what struck me in 2007? I read this somewhere today or yesterday. There was 10 people avail of it. Now there's something like in 2017, just 210 people.
Yeah, our referral rate has quadrupled over the last few years, and in the last decade, as you said, it's up 20-fold nearly.
Yeah.
So massive amounts of new referrals, which again makes people think, oh, this must be a new phenomenon, but it's not. Trans people and people that are not cisgender have always been in society. It's just that they've never had as much visibility as they've had now, and they're becoming more visible because they're more able to become visible. I think because of the changes in Irish society and global society in the last decade or two. But trans people and people that are not cisgender have always been there forever.
It reminds me of a story an old man said me years ago. He goes, I know it's different, but he goes, all these footballers come up with these injuries, metatarsal, this. Geez, they're not like the old players years ago. No, he says that's because they have the technology now to assess them or do x-rays. They've always been there.
Yeah.
And it's similar to this. These people have always been there. They just have living in the trenches, aren't they? They couldn't come out. Society in Ireland just wasn't ready for that, really.
Yeah, it was dangerous. It was physically dangerous to come out. And that is extremely distressing. And for some people, their option, even way back in the day, was suicide or survive. And it really, the suicide rates were very high.
Wow.
And suicidality is still much higher in the transgender population than it would be in the cisgender population. And that was because it's so distressing. So the people that came out were the people that had really, it was that or nothing. So that's why it's been so hidden away, because if they came out, they knew they were going to be ostracized by society at large, and life was going to be extremely difficult. So thankfully we're changing. We're still not, again, like many things in Irish society, we're not there yet. Things have improved, but we're still way off where we need to be. And we see that in the media, when we see a lot of, we've had stuff with different personalities in the media who are given a platform to openly debate the humanity or the existence of trans people as if it is a debate or if it is a question. And the fact that they're allowed that platform, or given that platform, shows that society in general is still not supportive of trans people at all, and is still, in fact, probably quite antagonistic in many ways. So it's still extremely difficult to be trans, but it is a little bit better than what it was, and hopefully it will get better.
I don't think society is accepting of any kind of diverse population, whether that be mental health, AIDS, disabilities, trans, homosexuality. If you are anywhere outside, people do their IVF, you're anywhere outside social norms or what social expect of you, and you're not deemed as perfect or normal, you're shunned. They mightn't say it to you, but you're kind of, people wince at you, like, like I only had to ask somebody to come on the podcast today about he had IVF, and he goes, I would talk about it, but my missus feels she's been judged, family have judged her, people have made comments about IVF. She goes, we just didn't feel like we were doing normal things. We're having kids through this process that wasn't what a man and woman should do.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe that.
That is amazing, but that's a very common story, isn't it? There's people and people with fertility issues are much more common than people realize, and there's a lot of people who have their kids now, but they just had trouble getting there. And you don't know that story because they don't want to tell you because they're afraid they'll get judged. So society, you're right, is very judgmental. So people like to have everybody fit into a certain box, and if they don't have a box to fit you into, they're not really sure what to do with you, so they're going to leave you on the side. But it can change. So I think you're right with things like mental health, for example. The traveling community is another group that we all say is absolutely fine to ostracize them. People with obesity, we were talking about obesity stigma before. When you have obesity, people think that there's a license to comment on, did you get the car today or did you walk? What are you eating for lunch? People will comment on your weight all the time. They'll make judgments about your the kind of person you are, the quality of person that you are based on your weight. But
100%.
It can change, because I think with gay and lesbian people, we've seen that massive change. So that was a group that I'm a member of that was up to 20 years ago was criminalised. We were completely ostracised. It was extremely difficult to be gay or lesbian and out in Ireland. And things did change. And I think what changed most for gay and lesbian people is that they became more visible, first of all. We still had challenges. And then people started to realise, oh, wait a second, my brother or sister or aunt or uncle or whoever is gay or lesbian, and then that kind of diffused out into society. Once people realize, oh, they're part of us too, and oh, we have a box that we can put them in, then everything works out okay. So I think with every other group that are still stigmatized and ostracized in society, it is possible for things to change and for them to become fully included members of society. But for that to happen, they need to be visible. We need to have very open conversations. And we need to avoid that kind of commentary that's so prevalent in the media these days, even with presidential candidates in the election last year with the traveling community. And I was absolutely shocked that they were able to stand up and say things that were inciting hatred towards members of the traveling community as a kind of political platform. And we can't allow that kind of talk, because it will make it okay for people to think about groups in that way. And that's not okay. It's not okay to say that group is evil or bad or terrible because somebody believes it or says it, because they're not. And we just have to be much more inclusive and open in our conversations, and we need to challenge that kind of rhetoric.
100%. Like, I trained with people, and I've told them about an interview we're doing with Eileen Flynn, and this person manages people and has done psychology courses and all this. And I said, I said, this fantastic interview with Eileen, and he goes, oh yeah, that sounds great, but Jesus, I live with a load of travellers behind me, Maz, and blah blah. I couldn't believe he said that. And I said, this is a beautiful human being, like a really, really nice, decent human being that cares about people. But people just have a spot in the heart for them, for hating them.
Yeah.
You know, I know Jesus loving people in my life, in my family, that love Jesus, but they don't like the travelling community.
Yeah.
You know.
And the travellers are kind of an example then of what can happen. So I talked about the positive example, which is gay and lesbian people in the last 20 years. Major progress, huge inclusion now. Being gay and lesbian is still difficult and still got challenges, but it's never been easier to be gay or lesbian than it is today in Ireland. But the travelling community have been stigmatised for decades, and there's very little light on the horizon there, but that's because it has been acceptable in general society to say travellers are criminals and travellers are this and travellers are that, so that it becomes so repeated that people just believe it, and generation after generation it's almost accepted fact that travellers are bad people, and that's why it's okay to keep them to the side. And that's a good example of how negative rhetoric, continuous negative rhetoric, can actually result in people just being completely walled off from the rest of society, and that's why it should not be allowed. It should, I'm not saying that everybody has a right to, people say, oh, well, that's free speech, and well, how can you say that somebody should be allowed to voice their opinion? Voice an opinion, but everybody needs to say, that's a sensible person in the room, you have no basis for saying that. It sounds like you just hate that group of people for whatever reason, and I'm calling BS, so you need to really heavily challenge it, not be all diplomatic and say, let's have an alternative view about why that person or that group of people are not awful, evil people. You have to head first go in and say, no, that kind of talk is not acceptable, because it just isn't, it doesn't make sense, it's not constructive, it's not real. So I think we do need to be very aware of that, because we have examples like the traveling community in our society where negative rhetoric has allowed society to wall off a whole community of people and just tar them with this awful brush.
It's interesting you say there about it's easier for people to come out gay and lesbian now. My daughter came out last year. Didn't really come out. Mum told me, and we had a conversation. And I was like, that all went really easy. That went all nice. Is that like a sign of the times? Is it easier for girls to do it? Is it her because it's her personality? Is it because of us as a family? I don't know. I think it's a mix, but I think you might be right. I think it is a time now that's a little easier. And I think, would you agree that it might be a little easier for girls to come out, or is that just, am I being unfair?
I'd say it's probably easier for both boys and girls right now than it was. I have conversations like this with my friends all the time where I feel lesbians are actually underrepresented. I think it's a very weird balance, because I think gay men are more threatening to society at large as a concept than lesbians, because gay men...
That's interesting. Why is that?
Yeah, I think that because gay men are more sexualized in a negative way.
Okay.
In a society that's quite misogynistic still and quite male-centered still. So for straight men, the idea of a gay man can be quite threatening in some ways.
Like if he's on your football team or he's in your job, you'd only use the toilet beside me, I'd be looking at me willy.
This kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that in that way, a gay man is more threatening in some ways, and I think it's more difficult for gay men to
that's what I'm thinking.
In a sense.
Yeah.
But then the flip side is gay men are much more represented. So if you think of any gay characters or lesbian characters, you'd probably name many, but if you were looking into it, you'll probably find 5 gay male characters for every lesbian character.
Yeah.
So they're much more represented. So I think for
Yeah,
lesbians,
I
in a
could
way,
name one, Ellen DeGeneres.
yeah,
Like, I couldn't name a couple more. I'd have to dig deep for it.
you have to really think,
Yeah.
because it's just they're underrepresented, and lesbian points of view are underrepresented compared to gay men. But then they're seen as less threatening, and they're even sometimes fetishized by straight male society. So in a sense, they're more accepted in one way, and they're kind of under the radar in one way. But I think for lesbians, it is a bit frustrating to live in a world where you're not as seen or as recognized in some ways. But I do think it probably is easier in one sense, because lesbians are probably seen, and this is just my point of view, but I think they're probably seen as less threatening to the kind of social hierarchy than gay men are. Yeah. Wow. But I think for both, it's much better than it ever was, and I think it's lovely these days to see gay men and women coming out as their boys and girls, like in their teenage years.
Yeah, my daughter was only 18, and I just thought, wow, you're brave. Like, fair play to you.
It was, I mean, I came out when I was in my teens, but it was back in the late 90s, and it was, I did it just because I thought that I should do it. But even at the time, it was the time in the 90s where, again, gay people were becoming more visible. So you did feel, and I think that's what really helps young people today, is that it's more visible, and they have social media now, which again, we didn't even have, but you know that there's a community out there. But
feel a bit of support.
When you're coming out of West Cork in the 90s, and you hear that there is another gay guy 2 towns over, but that's pretty much it. You do feel a little bit more isolated, a bit more alone. But I think nowadays it's great that there's representation in the media, and there's a whole social network available to you if you want it. And if you're in any kind of big town or city, there, Pride is now a big thing, things like that. So I think it's definitely easier than it was.
The term coming out actually still kind of catches me, but why do you have to come out? This whole coming out, like straight people don't turn up at school and go, you know what, I'm straight now. It's hard to get your head around that. Hopefully that moves away.
I think so. Yeah, I think it will.
People just accept wherever you kiss boys or girls, whatever.
Yeah, and I see some of my friends. My sister actually, her eldest is just 13 now this year. But even like when she has now getting back because she has a gay brother, but like when she has conversations, they're like, any boyfriends or girlfriends, and Lauren will be like, God, you're so weird. But I think for parents and friends of mine, they are much more aware, and again because they know gay people, they're much more aware of the possibility that my kid could be gay or straight, and so when they have conversations, they don't automatically assume, because when you're growing up as a boy or girl, if you're gay or lesbian, then everybody says, when you're a little boy or little girl, do you have a boyfriend or girl? And they always just put this like mantle of heterosexuality on you, which may not fit. And if it doesn't fit, you kind of just wear it because you don't want to cause a fuss. But I think it's much easier now because, not for everybody, but again, there's a growing number of people who, when they're parenting their kids, say, it could be one or the other, and whichever is fine. And that makes, of course, the kid feel, okay, well, actually either is fine. Because back in the day, you kind of knew, when people talk about gay people, it's usually a bad thing.
There's always a negative connotation attached to it.
You kind of know that if I'm going to be gay or come out as gay, then I'm going to get a negative reaction. Whereas nowadays, there's a little bit less of that. So eventually, I think, with a couple of generations of people saying it could be a boy or a girl, then people will just say, so you seen anyone at the moment? And then you find out. Yeah. I think that will happen I think that's happening with sexuality. I think it will happen with gender too.
Brilliant.
I hope, and maybe I'm slightly foolish in my optimism, but I do actually think that's happening. I think it's small pockets and small green shoots of hope here and there, but I think people are becoming more aware that gender is not a fixed binary thing, that there is a whole rainbow of colour, and that every colour is acceptable, and that people will just be who they are, and eventually that will come to everybody's attention. But I think we're a long way from that point, but we're moving towards that point.
Once we're moving, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So can we talk us through the pathway or the process if somebody wants to avail of the service, the gender service? What way does it work? Age, family, how does it all work?
Yeah, so it works, whenever you want to access the service, you just get referred. And the way we have set up our service is after collaboration with all of the stakeholders. We have a standard model of care, which is that people get referred, so they'll talk to their GP or whoever. Sometimes people will go to, say, psychologists or psychiatrists, so especially kids Around the time of puberty, they find puberty very distressing, and they might have behavioural issues.
What age is there a cut-off age?
So
Like,
we'll
when do
see
you
people
start?
from about 17 onwards.
Okay.
But there's a service in Crumlin, the paediatric service in Crumlin, that kids can be referred to at any age.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So Crumlin have a paediatric service, and then once they're finished in Crumlin, which is usually about 17, 18, they get referred to us. Yeah.
So would that be just, what's the service that they're offered at that age?
Same as us, pretty much, in broad terms, in that there will be multiple members of a team that will offer assessment and support and treatment. So what we're really doing, and I don't even like the word treatment, so what we're really doing is supporting people in their journey and their gender journey. So what we do, and I can't speak directly for Crumlin because I'm not 100% sure of exactly what their pathway is, but I believe it's similar to ours. And ours is that people get referred, and sometimes it's that they were in Crumlin, sometimes it's that they have been seen elsewhere, or sometimes it's that they've kind of hit the teens themselves and they've come directly to us, and all of that is fine. And we'll see people from in adulthood from 18 up to 85. I mean, any age.
Okay.
So there is no age limit or anything else. It's just if you want to see us, you get to see us. Unfortunately, because despite the fact we've had recent investment, myself included, in the service, and there's still a massive deficit between what we can supply in terms of people on the ground and time that we can offer, and the amount of people that need us, because again, referral rates are going up, and there's just not enough of us to see people as quickly as we'd like. But when people get referred, they will get put on the pathway. And the pathway is the person will see the mental health team first, and then once they've done that, they'll see us, and then if they want a hormonal transition, we initiate that. And then they stay with us for as long as they need to get to a place where things are stable, and then they can go back to their GP and just once a year get checked out with blood tests.
Oh, right.
So the first step is, in our model, is that we have a mental health assessment, and that is controversial within the non-cisgender community, because a lot of people don't have any mental health problems and don't need to really see a psychologist or psychiatrist, but some people do, and we don't know that from the very get-go.
Okay.
And trans people don't have a disease or disorder. They're not, this isn't a mental health disorder, but being trans is associated with a much higher rate of things like depression and anxiety, and of course gender dysphoria, which is this feeling of intense distress about your body. But as I said, there's also, in most populations that we have data on, there's a much higher rate of things like suicide, suicidal thoughts, and severe distress. So the reason we have a mental health team as the first stop is that we can identify those issues. Because if you do have some severe mental health disorder that's not either diagnosed or treated, and you go straight onto a hormonal transition, it can make things worse. So we want to make sure that people get a really smooth, successful journey, and we need to do that in a kind of stepwise way. That's what we offer. So once people go through that assessment, which is usually maybe 2 or 3 assessments with either a specialist nurse or psychologist or psychiatrist, then if there's something that they need support with, or if they have some kind of mental health disorder like depression and something that needs to be treated, we get that sorted, and then they come to see us in endocrinology, and then we talk about the hormonal transition. And hormonal transition is, so trans people will generally take a hormonal transition, which means that they will have gender-affirming hormones. So if you're a trans man, you have been born in a female body, and what we do in that circumstance is give testosterone. So
Okay.
You, yeah. And with trans women, so again they're born into a male body, we first of all give hormones that block your endogenous hormones. So everybody makes their own hormones, but in trans women they're making their own hormones for them at the start. So first of all we have to block those hormones, and then we replace with estrogen. And then for many trans people that's it. So they may not want to have any kind of surgical transition. Again, people in popular media think all trans people have hormones and surgery. That's not true. Many trans people just want a hormonal transition, and then that's it. If they want surgical transition, then we can facilitate them in that you have to do some paperwork and so on, because we don't offer any of the full affirming surgery. So you can have, if you're a trans man and your breasts are causing distress, you just don't want to have your breasts anymore, female breasts, because men have breasts too, cisgender and transgender men both have breasts. For trans men, if they have larger breasts and they just find them uncomfortable, they don't want them, then they could have mastectomy in Ireland. Likewise, hysterectomy is possible in Ireland. But actual gender affirming surgery, for genital surgery, for example, is not. And even the surgeries that are available, they're very limited in availability, and the waiting lists are very long.
Why is that?
Just because there are very, very, very few people offering it. Yeah, in the whole island of Ireland, so north and south.
Where did they go for that? Where's the?
So we support them wherever they can find that will offer them a service. That
England do it? America?
Used to be, yeah, UK, so London, different places in Europe. It could be the US. So anywhere that, first of all, is a recognised centre with somebody who is, a reliable practitioner and that we think is a safe practitioner, where you can get funding, because again, you have to apply for the funding to have this treatment abroad. So there's a lot of factors that have to come into play, but anywhere that we can find that will offer a good service, basically. So unfortunately, we haven't got the surgical services really in Ireland, and we have a little, but what we have is very, very little, and it's certainly nowhere near a full surgical service that we should have. But again, many people don't want the surgical transition, and that's okay, of course. So for them, it's okay, but for people that want surgical transition, it makes the process even longer and more difficult, and having to travel abroad and all that is
do you know when somebody presents with the TIA and they want to begin the pathway, do you assess them? I know you say you do mental health assessments and so. Do you assess them as in to see if this is the best choice, or you might have family going on, oh, it's just a transitional period they're going through, it's not really them. Do you assess that? Do you make a judgment call on it, or is it just the person themselves decide?
Yeah, well, I personally don't do any of it because I'm not on the mental health team, but the mental health team, it's not actually about, it's more about where this person is on their journey and how much support they may or may not need. And that would include the family in many cases, but at the start, it's all about the individual in front of us. So we sit down with them first off and say, okay, tell me your story, tell me who you are, tell me all of that. So they tell us their story, and they'll just say, this is how I feel and how I've been feeling and what I've gone through. And then we'll ask things like about mental health problems that may have come up. So again, the stress of being trans, especially going through puberty, can really damage your mental health. So we ask a lot about, have you suffer from things like depression or anxiety and things like that. We will see trans kids and adolescents having had major behavioural problems because, again, the stress of living in the wrong body has caused a lot of issues. So we'll talk about that, trying to get a feel for, how serious that was. And then we also talk about relationships, because we need to know that we're supporting. So as I said, we keep every part of the person in mind. So mental health, physical health, but social health as well. So is this somebody who is supported and will be supported? Because the actual transition itself is wonderful to go through, in the sense that you're now getting into the physiology that you were supposed to be into from the start. So you're now becoming the person that you always were, physiologically speaking. I mean, you always were that person, but physiologically we're getting the hormonal balance right. But that can have downsides in terms of mental health, but in terms of social health as well. So other people around you may not respond very well to that transition. So we do involve people around you as much as is appropriate, or as much as the person wants. But we just highlight, saying, have you thought about the fact that, say at work, these things might happen and that might cause problems, or with your family, that, how much have you thought about it? So we explore those avenues too, and sometimes have meetings with family members if that's appropriate for the individual as well.
Yeah, I see that as a huge struggle. The family, do you see that? Like, there's, as much as it's person-centered care for the individual, do you have family then trying to influence this is not for them, you're getting it wrong, don't do it, where they would have just unconscious bias, they just don't want it, and they're not really thinking of the person?
Yeah, you'd be surprised how much people that, even from a background where they never met, as far as they know, a trans person before, their kid is trans, they will just get on board like that, and there's no problem. Yeah. So you would be surprised, that because everybody thinks, it must be very challenging for every family, and it's not always, but unfortunately it is the case that many families do find it challenging, or at least some members of the family will find it challenging, and that can cause problems between the person themselves and their family, but also within families sometimes. That, other members of the family might disagree about everything. So it can cause problems. It is extremely challenging for the person themselves, and then it can be challenging for others and parents, siblings, partners, because as part of the hormonal transition for partners especially, it will change your sexual health for a while because we will be changing hormones, so sexual health will be negatively affected for a time, and then should get back to where you want it to be. But there will be
Okay.
parts of the transition where sexual health will be potentially negatively affected, and that can affect your intimate relationships as well.
Of course.
So that's why we do explore relationships a lot, which can feel very intrusive, I think, at times, because we do ask a lot of questions about relationships. But the reason for that is that we want to make sure that once this person, as this person's going on this journey, once this person takes a step, that is going to cause significant, ripples in their social circle, in their social world, that we can identify things that might cause problems and offer more support, or try and make it as smooth as a journey as possible.
When people go on this journey and they start embarking on the hormonal change and the endocrine system is starting, can they go back, or have people gone back? Or
Yeah, so I mean, if you start a hormonal transition, you can stop the hormones and you will revert to the hormonal system that you had before. So the hormones that we give people are just replacing, or I kind of call it replacing because I consider it for trans men, they need testosterone, so we're kind of replacing their testosterone. And by doing that, we suppress estrogen. But for example, a trans man stops testosterone, that has taken away the kind of brake that's on the estrogen production, so the estrogen will come back up. So there will be changes. So any changes like hair growth and so on will revert to a large extent. However, there are certain things that will not go back. So in trans men, for example, the deepening of the voice won't revert. So any deepening of the voice that happens, that's happened.
You're stuck with that.
Yeah. Likewise for trans women, when we take away the estrogen replacement, then the native testosterone is reproduced. And again, the kind of feminizing aspect of the estrogen is gone, and the masculizing aspect of the testosterone is back. But things like breast development, any breast development that may have happened, will not go away.
Okay.
So there are certain, you can get back to the hormone kind of mix that you were on before. Your native hormones can refunction and reproduce. But there are certain physical changes and changes that will not go back.
Wow.
So it's reversible mainly, but not completely.
Okay. When it comes to trans men, what is the testosterone you give? What type? What is it?
So we usually use either a gel or an injection. So testosterone is not very reliable in its absorption as a tablet, and also is much more likely to cause liver damage than the injections or the gels. So you can rub on gels. Okay. There are patches. The patches are generally much lower strength.
Yeah.
So we don't use them very often. But transdermal, so through the skin, like gels or patches, testosterone, or intramuscular, which is the injection testosterone, is much safer for the liver, and that's why we use that primarily. And you can choose whichever you want, really. So the difference between the gels and the injections is the gels you have to take every day. The injections you have to take every couple of weeks, and with the one that's giving you the biggest break is every 3 months. So people choose based on what they prefer in a day-by-day habit.
Okay.
Some people just don't like injections at all, for example, so they'd rather avoid that.
Okay.
Other people like the injection because it's convenient, so they'll have to take it every day. It's every couple of weeks. So we decide between us what the individual themselves wants, and whatever he wants, then we give. And but we can adjust it. So if you start in a gel, for example, you want to go into an injection, do that. If you want to go back, you do that too.
Cool.
So you can give testosterone safely with any of those methods, but we normally and almost always steer clear of the tablet testosterone because that can cause liver damage.
Here's me bro science, me gym education. You talk about tests, long acting like Enante, Cipinate, those stuff, Sustanon.
Sustanon, and so Sustanon and Libido would be our two most commonly used.
And what's the other one?
Libido.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, so it's a 3-monthly injection.
Wow.
So Sustanon you usually take every 2 or 3 weeks, and then Libido you take.
So they just do one shot every couple of weeks. For how long? What's the?
Forever. I mean,
they'll be on it for.
Yeah, forever. Yeah, wow. So I mean, because if you're a trans man, you can't make your own testosterone, so you be on it as a supplement. Yeah.
And then will you, by increasing tests, will you then suppress the estrogen?
Yes.
That do itself, or would you give estrogen blockers?
No, which is different to trans women. Testosterone will suppress what's called gonadotropins, which are the
Yeah.
hormones that come from the pituitary glands to the ovaries. And then if they go to the ovaries, you stimulate estrogen production, for example. So testosterone will suppress that quite well, and therefore you make very little, if any, estrogen. Now, remembering, of course, cisgendered men make estrogen and testosterone, so we're both cisgendered, and we make testosterone and estrogen.
Yeah.
But we make much more testosterone than estrogen, so there is a balance.
Yeah.
So it's never the case that you'll have zero estrogen.
Yeah.
But you'll just have much, much less than testosterone.
Because I know from my reading, as soon as you start increasing tests, you can increase estrogen. You know, it can aromatize.
Yeah. So if you're on too much, because again, a lot of people think, well, if this much gets me here, then being on more will get me further. But actually, there's a kind of paradox where the more testosterone you're on, the stuff that you're not using immediately will be changed to estrogen. And that's, again, in cisgendered men too. So cisgendered men that take a lot of testosterone, that, for example, we were talking before about steroid use, testosterone use in gyms. So a lot of men that take excess anabolic steroids or testosterone will get breast development. So they used to call these, excuse the French, bitch tits back in the day. Gynecomastia is the proper term. And the reason that happens in gym users that use excessive testosterone is that the testosterone or the anabolic steroid testosterone type hormone,
the androgens,
is converted into estrogen because there's too much of it. Your body's not using it, so it converts it to the other. So that happens in cisgendered and transgender men.
Yeah, aromatizes, doesn't it? And they say high fat percentage can do that. You know, it creates
so
inflammation.
You're much more likely to get that if you're carrying extra weight. So fat cells are a little hormone factory, and they do that in men and in women. So women, estrogen will be converted to testosterone, especially if there's a bit of extra weight. But in any case, it will be extra. If you're on extra, it can be converted.
Yeah. So my thinking is, you know, if you start changing the hormonal profile of trans men or women, you're changing. My thinking is you're starting to change the biochemistry within the body. Can the brain then adjust to that? Is there a process that needs to be managed? Do you have to, if you start changing in here, not saying the way how am I going to explain this? You start changing hormones, will the brain change with it? You know, as in mental health, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, it will actually, and I think a lot of trans people will say the thing that really helps them feel better is knowing that something's happening, in the sense that they're on a pathway. So sometimes you'll meet people, so occasionally I'll meet people at the very start of the pathway where I'm not a mental health professional, but I might meet them as they're coming into clinic to go see the nurse or psychologist or somebody like that, and immediately they say, I'm here, I'm starting the journey properly now, I feel better already. A lot of people will, as soon as they start the hormones, before it's really even had time to get to what we call a steady state, meaning that it's not kind of on the way up. It's because usually with hormones, when we start, or any medicine actually, or anything that we give to people, if you give anything outside of the body to the body, it takes a while to build up to a level where it plateaus. We call that steady state. So sometimes people go on estrogen or testosterone, and like 1 or 2 days into it, before it really has balanced out or stabilized, they already feel better. So from a mental health point of view, there's huge benefits to hormonal transition for most people. As I said, there's a minority, and that's why we have this mental health element, that will find that change difficult. That's more likely in testosterone, especially if you start at higher doses, because testosterone, when you go from a lower to a higher concentration in the blood, can cause things like aggression and irritability. And so it is the case that we sometimes, if we're worried that the person that's starting testosterone might be at risk of, say, mental health deterioration of whatever kind, we might start a bit more slowly with testosterone, just so that we don't go from 0 to 100.
Of course.
Because we could potentially precipitate a problem. But otherwise, no, from a mental health point of view, it's massively beneficial. So hormonal transition is a hugely beneficial thing.
It's about perception as well, isn't it? If you feel like, wow, this is all changing in the right way for me, your mind will probably adapt with it and adjust. I'm happy, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's very hard, and I think only a trans person can really answer this, but from meeting so many trans people, it seems like, and it's very different to cisgender people, because I treat cisgender people that are hormonally deficient in estrogen or testosterone as well, and it's very different. So let's say cisgender men that are testosterone deficient and I'm treating them, it will take a long time, relatively, compared to, say, a trans man, much longer before they say, wow, I feel better. And with trans men, it's much quicker, that effect, and just feeling better. But
why?
I think because, again, I suppose with trans men, the big difference is that the concentration of testosterone is much lower for starters. So you're going from a much lower concentration to, say, even a cisgendered man who's deficient, unless they're critically deficient, their testosterone will be at a higher starting point. So you're probably starting at a higher level to go. So there's probably a bigger jump for trans men.
Okay.
But also I think it's a step in a journey, and that's a positive thing, because I'm sure, and again, a trans person would have to answer this because I just don't know, I'm sure it must be a huge relief almost to say I've been trans for all this time, because remember the time I'm meeting them, they're adults mainly.
Yeah.
So it must be a huge move forward, a huge progression to say I've been waiting for this moment and now it's started. That in itself must offer some benefit.
And it's kind of back to what we said earlier. It's not just about the hormones, it's about the lifestyle, the acceptance, perception of yourself, people viewing you as man, woman, wherever you may want to be. That has a huge impact as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
so it's not just the hormonal changes, it's life seems to be changing in a positive way for them.
Exactly, that's it. It's life is changing positively. So even though you're just starting, you know you're starting, and you know that this is now, you're moving to this phase. Because again, as I said, the hormonal transition, and if people want to go through a surgical transition, they go through that too. That's tough in the sense that, it's new physiology, new challenges, can be social stresses and things like that. But once you've kind of got yourself through that, then life is good. You've got through a tough time, and now you can just live your life without worrying too much about seeing doctors, seeing people. And ultimately, our design is that people, once they're balanced on the safe amount of hormone and there's no side effects or problems, and everybody's happy, they just go back to their GP and check it once a year.
Yeah, just keep getting bloods, is it?
And if there's a problem, come back to us. So we'll always kind of be there in a virtual sense, but we won't have to be dragging people in and out of hospital clinics that they can just live their lives in.
That's savage.
Yeah, but they will need a blood test every year because, unfortunately, because we're never as good at replacing or giving hormones as it would be if the person could make their own hormones.
You're never going to get it. So we're always doing
it a little bit off, so we might over or under things.
Once one goes up, the other go down. It's all about manipulating it.
Yeah, regularly. But
is it an expensive process?
For the person coming to our clinic, no, in the sense that they don't have to pay us because it's a public service.
Wow.
For prescription, obviously, there's prescription charges, so that's the drug payment scheme for these meds, and that is pretty much it. But then for surgical transition, that will depend massively on what's available, what the person is pursuing, what insurance they have, and all of that. So that can vary. Yeah. But
you can get it done on insurance.
Yeah, some of them do. Yeah, some insurers will pay for it. Yeah. So, and again, depends on plans and policies and all the rest. But some will, some won't, and then some people obviously don't have insurance at all. So it can vary a lot, and it's definitely not easy. And definitely that part is certainly going to be expensive, even if you've got some fantastic insurance policy. There would be co-pays and deductibles, and you have to travel abroad probably, so you have to pay for that. And there's all these other things that come into it. But the hormonal transition, there will be the prescription charge because it's a prescription. But otherwise, everything is free. Yeah.
Like it was alien to me, this conversation. I didn't know what way they went, but it doesn't seem that dark to me. It seems like a really clear pathway. There's a lot of hurdles, obviously. I don't mean to be flippant when I say that, but it seems very doable.
Yeah, it's
the process.
The process is there. The process is much longer than it should be, and we're working on making that better, and we're a bit off that. But what I'd love is for the process to be super quick, in the sense that somebody goes to whoever their GP or wherever they go to, gets a referral, they get seen really quickly within a couple of weeks, and then after they've gone through the first phase with the mental health team, then it's only maybe another 8 weeks before they see us. Because I think you do need, again, this is just from our experience with lots of people, and everybody is individual and everybody has a different process, but a lot of people, once they've got over, because it is kind of a hurdling race, so you're jumping hurdles in many ways, and once you've got over one, you kind of need a breather sometimes to get over the next one. So we do think that most people like to have a little bit of space between steps, but it shouldn't be months and months. It should be a couple of weeks, and much quicker than it is now. But there is a clear path, and there is a process and a system that everybody agrees that our system is the system that should be what's used. And certainly, as I said, it's not as efficient as we'd like it to be in terms of waiting times. But there is a process there, and it's really, especially now, we're really centering it on each individual's needs, what they need in terms of support and care as time goes on. And I hope that it's getting better. And certainly my goal now that I've started, and again, I'm a year, a month, is that it will continue to get better, get more individually focused, more just, that we'll be able to do more now that we have more people in the team.
Well, I'm pretty encouraged by, it sounds great, and the process and the pathway seem very clear to me. It didn't beforehand. I think it's fantastic. The one thing, again, probably would be the stigma attached to it, the mental health. Just want to talk about a little study by Connor and Ollie from Cabot Seeley School. I think this is fantastic.
Yeah.
And one of the big parts of it, I think they've done 300 people, a cohort 300 people, the LGBTQ and the non-LGBT, the depression and anxiety, it's quite high in these groups, isn't it? I'd love people to take stock of that.
Yeah. Well, they do. I mean, people like us working in gender, or people working with LGBT people in general, and no matter which one of the letters you are, will all know this instinctively. But we also know it from studies. And lots of studies have been done on quality of life, on mental health in the LGBTQ plus community. And we see this exactly what the guys have described, which is that mental health issues are much more common. And why that is, in my view, is because people in that community, again, which I'm a part of, is we're dealing with a lot of stigma. And I, again, because I'm nearly 40 at this stage, and I've gone through like 20 plus years of being a gay man, and things have kind of settled out for me, I kind of forget that it is actually really, really tough when you're facing a world that doesn't understand you, where you face a world that doesn't really know where to put you. And even when we had the marriage equality referendum, I remember that was only about 4 years ago this year. And at that stage, I was in a civil partnership, completely settled. It was out to everybody for nearly 2 decades, and very, very established and settled in myself and who I was. And then you have to watch debates about people going, well, are gay relationships the same as other relationships? I don't think they are. And then you get this sting. You think, wow, I forgot that sting. I forgot how hard it was to work your way through a world where people would talk about you in the abstract. And ironically, we're kind of doing this with trans people now because there's no trans people in the room, but people talk about you in the abstract and in the negative abstract, and you think, God, that was very difficult. And that's why I think for kids, and we were talking earlier about how it's much easier now. It's still not easy. And even if you are gay or lesbian or trans, you still know that you're in a minority. And in Ireland, okay, things are moving forward, but you're still, there's a sizable group of people, especially if you're trans, there's a huge group of people that don't understand you and don't accept you. But in the world, in the actual world, the majority of people don't understand or accept you. So it is normal, I think, for people to feel anxious or depressed, at some point at least.
Yeah, some of the findings I couldn't, the family, the friends, the judgment keeps coming up,
Yeah.
We do it. Society might be okay with trans, but they're not okay with travelers. They might be okay with LGBT, whatever, but they're not okay. There's always judgment somewhere for us to get over, isn't it? How do we support the person? How do we get over this stigma?
And I think it's by talking and by being visible. And I think but that's difficult because if you're visible in a world that stigmatizes you, you'll be stigmatized, and you'll have to face that, which is very, very tough to do. But you're right. I mean, we just have this thing in society where it's automatic to respond negatively to groups of people, and we just decide what groups of people we think they're not good people or bad people. But people do change, I think, and I think society can change, but it's very, very difficult to do. And what we're really asking of the people that are, like the guys studied, the people that are most depressed or anxious, that they are the ones that have to really put themselves out there so people can hear this story and hear about what they're anxious about, what they're depressed about, so that they can say, oh, I caused that. So me talking about their gender identity or their sexuality caused them to feel anxious or depressed. God, maybe I shouldn't talk about people like that. But until people hear that feedback, they're not going to really reflect in their own behaviour and change it.
Absolutely, and a huge part of that I found insight and awareness is from family members when they've had either somebody with a disability or they've had an LGBTQ child or brother or sister. Insight and awareness begins to develop, and they see things and life through a different prism. You know, and if people can practice empathy and seeing what it's like for other people, we
Yeah.
might have some change. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's just a great rule of thumb for everybody is just before, if I'm thinking something bad about somebody, just stop for a second and think. And I do this even in like day-to-day life and work. If somebody is being very rude to me or very aggressive, be it a colleague or whoever it might be, I say, do you know what, they might be having a bad day. Just stand back for a second before reacting and getting into a fight. Just stand back and think, could they just be having a horrible day? They've had some bad news or something terrible has happened, and give them the space. And I think all of us could do that, and instead of rushing to judgment or to rush to a reaction, that we stop and say, well, why are we thinking that about this person? And what do we really have to base that on? And should we give them the benefit of the doubt? So, I mean, if you see a traveller coming into your shop, they might rob me. Well, maybe they won't actually. I mean, why do you think that? And you have to challenge all those preconceptions about whatever community you're targeting or stigmatizing or marginalizing. Think about the inception of that response and where does that come from, and challenge it. But then that's easy for us to say, and easy if you're a person that does that kind of automatically anyway. But it's very easy to get that message out there because a lot of people say, no, that's what I think, and what I think is right because I'm right usually, and I just keep thinking that. So it's very difficult to
Wow,
to challenge
it's
that.
hard, isn't it? People tend to dehumanize, whether it's the travelling community, whether it's the gay community, whether it's people from Cork, Kerry. We don't even think they're humans. We just go, they're a bunch of fuckers. You know,
Yeah.
we leave them over there. We're better, and we do that. And I think.
And it's a human. Actually, we were talking about this book.
I know, it's just sitting at the table. The
That's
Sapiens.
exactly what he talks about. Yes, in Sapiens, they're talking about that's a kind of evolutionary advantage for humans because they keep to their bands, and then their bands can support each other, and they keep other bands away. So there is this inbuilt human reflex to, and that's why we're also cliquey. That's humans are naturally cliquey people. We want to be in a group that feels comfortable.
We have this unconscious bias.
We do, yeah, and we have to actively challenge that because the natural inclination is just to accept your bias and say, yeah, this is my group of people and that's not my group of people, so I'll stick with them and they can stick with their own, and that's what feels right to me. But unless we actively challenge that will never change.
Yeah.
And the only way to make people actively challenge it is to talk about issues affecting LGBTQ people, travellers, disabled people, obese people, whatever. People that are being targeted by society in a negative way, until we talk about that openly and keep that really toxic rhetoric out of it and just say, listen, why do you think that bad thing about this group of people? And talk about it openly. Until we start doing that consistently, we're not going to change things. But we are a little bit. I mean, that is happening, but it's very small stuff at the moment, and it has a long way to go, I think.
Even one of my greatest learnings was that I'm very judgmental. I come from a place of people judge, people judge me, I judge them, everyone judges, and I just became aware of how judgmental I can be and how much bias I can have from being from the inner city. I judge people from the middle class. Oh, they'll think I'm a numpty, don't think I'm uneducated, blah, blah, blah. So straight away I'm judging them because they're going to judge me.
Yeah.
And now I've just learned, to catch my judgments. Even if I'm driving on the road, I'll see something, I'll go to judge, you're judging.
Yeah.
It's just in us to.
It is, you see, and it's a daily practice. You have to actually, when you're doing it, like you're doing, you have to say, oh, I'm doing that. Why am I doing it? And kind of stop it. But our inclination is to judge, and it feels good. I mean, God knows.
Oh yeah, it makes us feel better than them. I was driving the road and I see a lot of men cycling, and I was like, oh, grown men in lycra shorts.
Yeah.
And what the fuck? They're like grown men now having the crack, enjoying their life. With me in a car and I'm judging and going, you're being a prick.
Yeah, but this is it. But it feels much easier and better and more.
Sorry to cyclists, by the way. I don't mean to be bad about that.
There's a bike right there. Yeah. But you
better not wear lycra because I'm gonna fucking judge you.
Lycra's not good at me. So
no, me either.
But I think because it feels so comfortable and good, we do it, and that feels right. Where it feels much more difficult, especially if you're kind of in an antagonistic situation, or when on these panel shows people are faced with their judgmental behaviour, faced with their prejudice. They say, no, I'm right, because it feels much better to say, no, I'll judge and I'm right because it's more comfortable than say, am I right? And actually query that and question that, because that's difficult and you have to really pick yourself apart. It's first of all a lot more work, and second of all, it's a lot less comfortable.
Oh yeah.
So I can understand that tendency in society, but it is just so important for us to all get along, and not matter what background we're coming from. And God knows you'll have people that you completely disagree with, and they might not like you very much, and you might not like them very much, but you can get on and respect them and respect who they are and respect everything about them. So we can do that. It doesn't mean that we have to all go around holding hands and singing songs all the time.
Kumbaya, my lord.
Because that's not going to happen.
No,
But we
let's
can
be
definitely-
realistic.
Yeah, we can definitely live in a world where we say, okay, I don't really agree with what you say. I don't really like what you do. I don't practice your religion or whatever it is. But we can live next door, and if you're in trouble, I'll help you out. And if you're celebrating something and you want me to help celebrate with you, I'll celebrate. You know, we can do that. So you don't have to love everybody to get on with everybody. You can just get on, as long as you respect differences and don't go to this place of your difference makes me dislike you, or I want to dislike you, or I will dislike you because you're different to me, or I don't feel comfortable with who you are or what you're saying. Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. Here's some for you. We're really just about to wrap up. I've took up a lot of your time. What's the one thing you would like people to take away from this interview after listening to it?
One thing I would like people to think empathetically and to actually practice empathy all the time. And that's for the two biggest clinical jobs I have are people in the gender that attend the gender service and people that come to the obesity clinics. And in both of those groups, I meet people all the time who are subjected to absolutely despicable judgment and stigma and violence and aggression from people on the street. I mean, people on the bus, people all over. And every time I hear that, it breaks my heart. And I think, why can't people just be respectful and be kind? So my one message is be kind, be empathetic. And the second you have that negative impulse, think about what the other person has gone through or is feeling, or what it would be like to be them.
Wow.
Be kind.
Be sound. Don't be an asshole.
Don't be an arse, yeah.
Dr. Karl Neff, thanks very much for coming on the podcast. I'm absolutely honoured to have you on the show. Honoured to have your time. It was fascinating. I thought it was opening a Pandora's box, but it's not as complicated as I thought. It's absolutely brilliant, and I think it's a really clear pathway. I think there's so many other ducks you got to get in a row. You know, the family, the lifestyle, society, social norms. But actually, to start the process, like from the gender service, is quite clear, and I'm excited about it actually.
Yeah, so we are too, and I mean, it is one model, and there are other models that other people prefer, but we are very, we believe in our model, and we think that it will give people support, care, and just help them on their journey to get to where they need to get to.
Fantastic. Might get you on the show to talk about obesity.
I'd love that. Yeah.
Deadly. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Matt.
Absolute legends.